The deep spiritual nourishment derived from the tree of life is so profound, it will empower you to metaphorically walk on water, to move and operate above the chaotic, tumultuous seas of humanity's norms, confusion, and error. The armor of God is an undeniable, powerful reality. Having faith is not a blind act. On the contrary, it is an act of seeing with clear spiritual insight, perceiving and understanding the actual will of God for your life and the world. It is in this context that God referred to certain people as stiff-necks. This label is not merely a harsh critique, but a precise spiritual diagnosis. Simply don't want to change, and the arrogance of not wanting to be led in doing the right things. These individuals emerge from all facets of society and often take a disturbing pride in perpetrating atrocities and choosing the path of wrong action. For the sake of deep biblical interpretation, we will continue to address this concept using God's intended designation of stiff-neck. I admit that before God mercifully granted me a deeper, more profound understanding of the intricacies of His kingdom, my first deeply ingrained inclination was to question, to doubt, and often to outright dismiss the very principles that now form the cornerstone of my faith. I viewed spiritual truths with an intellectual arrogance, treating them as mere philosophical concepts to be judged by the limitations of my own finite reason, rather than as divine revelations to be humbly received. This resistance was not a casual dismissal, but a tenacious, almost willful refusal to surrender my own control or preconceived notions to a higher, unseen authority. Prioritize my own way, the way of the world. I recall being traumatized from an early age, sitting on hard church benches for seemingly endless hours. The loud, excessive shouting and hollowing left me feeling disheartened and dispirited. Even as a child, there was an instinctive sense that this method was fundamentally flawed. Despite my stubborn adherence to worldly ways, I never completely lost sight of God, and, critically, God never lost sight of me. The process of the renewing of the mind is a spiritual awakening so powerful and blissful that my entire being can only describe the state it achieves as heaven. This is a critical, ongoing process involving rigorous critical thinking to elevate and separate oneself from the traditional, constricting norms and ancient Roman regulations that have permeated and corrupted much of organized religion. True walking with God involves a direct, personal relationship and does not require adherence to complex rites, ceremonies, or rituals. I invite you now to take a deeper walk with me, a walk upon the sea of people, nations, and tongues. This journey is intended to uplift you, granting you the ability to move above the destructive foolishness, the buffoonery of humanity. Purpose is to assist those who recognize that humanity stands at a critical juncture, needing the fundamental emergence of the renewing of the mind. This renewal is the calming of the spiritual sea within, establishing a stable place of wisdom. In this context, is not merely a distant location, but a state of being. It is knowing in the absolute confidence of faith, thereby creating the atmosphere of grace. Heaven is God's. In stark contrast, hell is the complete opposite. It is a place of profound contradiction and consuming confusion that is brought into reality in one's life, where the individual burns up throughout their existence with an intense, unfulfilled desire to comprehend the truth but remains perpetually unable to grasp it. I am committed, through the divine grace and power of God, to systematically unpack and elucidate every layer of this message. I will break it all down, meticulously and clearly. It is time to spiritually wake up to the forces at play. What is behind the politics, corporate power structures, and the ultimate driving force behind the entire system of things? You absolutely need to understand the underlying system in order to change the flawed system of things.
Walk on water.
A great practical example of the power of renewing the mind would be to know what is truly implied in such spiritual stories as to walk on water. This phrase is definitively defined by God in Revelation chapter 17 verse 15. The waters are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. Therefore, walking on water is the spiritual reality of thinking, operating and living above the mediocrity of scripted roles and fabricated inventions of humanity. With the renewal of the mind, we will be able to participate in and experience things for the first time in an unadulterated, pure state. Without this essential renewing of the mind, there can be no realistic solace, no genuine spiritual enlightenment, and no lasting peace. The renewing of the mind is an infusion of knowledge that runs like pure, living water, a perpetual spring of God's absolute reality that leads directly to the tree of reality. The core truth stated by God remains: the thing that hath been, It is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there is no new thing under the sun.